All right, we're going to continue with trig, and today we are going to talk about how to solve for a side of a triangle using trig. So we spent the last 2 days laying some groundwork with some vocabulary and learning about the ratios. And today we're going to use those things to actually solve. Before we get started, though, we need to make sure that your calculator is in the correct mode. If it's not in the correct mode, then all of your answers will be wrong. So it defaults to radian mode, and we need to put it in degree mode. So grab your calculator, and please don't assume that someone in another class did this. You need to check it each time, because if they clear it, then it'll go back to the default. So you want to click this mode button right here next to second, and it will pull up this screen. You want to arrow down. Yours will, if it hasn't been reset, will look like this. You want to arrow down to radian. Oops. You want to arrow down to radian and over to degree and hit enter. So that degree is highlighted here. So you're hitting the mode button and then arrowing down and over, hitting enter so that degree is highlighted. Once you've done this, you can hit second mode or just the clear button, and it'll take you back to the regular screen. All right, now that our calculators are in the correct mode, let's look at solving. So solve for the missing side. So I have a right triangle and I have a missing side here of x. I'm going to use trig to figure out how long that side is. So I first need to look at the information given to me to decide, do I have the hypotenuse? Do I have the opposite? Do I have the adjacent? Which two do I have? So the easiest to find, I think, is hypotenuse because we're the most familiar with it. And the hypotenuse is given to me in this picture of 19. So then I need to look and see what is x. Is it the opposite or the adjacent? Well, since it's across from 28 degrees, it's the opposite. This side here is the adjacent, and there's not anything over there. So the adjacent was not given to me in this picture. So I'm going to use opposite and I'm going to use hypotenuse. So I'm going to look up here at SOHCAHTOA and which one uses the ratio opposite and hypotenuse. Well, this one does. So opposite and hypotenuse. So I'm going to use sine for this triangle. Sine. You always put the angle measure next. So sine of 28 equals. And then since O is first, opposite goes on top. And since H is second in SO, then the hypotenuse goes on the bottom. All right, so that is my ratio, which we did yesterday. So that should look semi-familiar. Now we just need to solve it. We have set up a proportion here. Sine of 28, I can put it over 1 to make it a fraction, equals x over 19. Now we're just going to solve this proportion, which you guys did. I bet you did 100 of these before Christmas where we solved proportions. You're just going to cross multiply. So let's multiply here across. So I'm going to do this way first. And if you'll put whatever's on bottom and front, 19 times sine of 28, if you'll put your sine, cosine, tangent second, it'll be easier to type in your calculator. So just trust me. And a multiplication doesn't matter if you put, 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. So the order doesn't matter. So just to make it easier for our calculator, put whatever's on the bottom and front. And then 1 times x is just x. All right, so now I'm going to my calculator and I'm just typing this in, 19 times sine of 28. So 19 times sine of 28. Rounding to the nearest tenth, so 1 decimal place, I get 8.9. So 8.9 equals X. So this side of this triangle is a length of 8.9. I just used trig to figure out the length of that triangle. All right, let's do another one. So new triangle. I want to again see what information is given to me. I always try to find the hypotenuse first, because again, I think it's the easiest. So here's the hypotenuse, but there's no information over here. So the hypotenuse is not going to be part of my ratio. So let's go back. What do I have? Well, across from 41 degrees is X. So that's going to be the opposite because it's across. Next to 41 degrees is 32. That's going to be my adjacent. So I'm given the opposite and the adjacent. Is that so, ka, or toa? Which one has adjacent and opposite? Well, here is opposite and adjacent. So this is going to be tangent. So tangent of 41, it's always sine, cosine, tangent, and then your angle measure. So tangent of 41 equals opposite is on top, and in my case, that's X, over adjacent on bottom, and in this case, that's 32. Now I'm ready to solve. So let's cross multiply. So remember my hint to put 32 on the bottom, or excuse me, put 32 in front because it's on the bottom. So 32 times tangent of 41 equals X. Now go to your calculator and type that in. 32 times tangent of 41. 32 times tangent of 41. And y'all actually grab your calculator and practice typing it in. Don't just depend on me to do it. Make sure that you can type it in as well and you're practicing before you go do it for a grade. Rounding to the nearest tenth, this is 27.8. So 27.8 is my X. So that means this side over here is a length of 27.8. All right, let's do another one. And I'm going to write SOHCAHTOA every time if it's not given to me, because that helps me know which ratios to use. All right, let's see what information is given to me. Across from the 90 degrees is my hypotenuse. So I have it. And then X is next to the 21 degrees. So it's going to be the adjacent. All right, so I'm given adjacent and hypotenuse. So which trig ratio is adjacent and hypotenuse? Ka. This is adjacent, this is hypotenuse. So I have the cosine of 21 degrees is adjacent on top because it's first, over hypotenuse is on bottom because it's second. And then I cross multiply. So 26 times the cosine of 21 equals X. Go type that in. So 26 times the cosine of 21. And I get 24.3 when I round to the nearest tenth. 24.3. So this side is 24.3, which it is smaller than the hypotenuse, which it should be, right? The hypotenuse is the longest, so that is a reasonable answer. Okay, let's go to this one. So again, SOHCAHTOA. Let's see what information I'm given here. Across from the 90 degrees is my hypotenuse. So X is my hypotenuse. Across from 33 degrees is 15. So that's my opposite. So this time I'm not given the adjacent. That would have been this side, and there's nothing over there, so no adjacent. So I have hypotenuse and opposite. Which trig ratio has hypotenuse and opposite? So sine does. So sine 33 is my angle measure. So sine of 33 equals, opposite goes on top. In this case, that's 15. Hypotenuse goes underneath. In this case, that's x. All right, I'm going to cross multiply. So x times the sine of 33 equals 15. This time, since my x was on the bottom, then when I cross multiplied, I don't have x all by itself. That's okay. We know how to do this. This is what we did before Christmas. I want x by itself. I need to get rid of times sine of 33. I'm just going to divide by the sine of 33 on both sides. So they cancel over here, which leaves me with x equals, and then I go type this in my calculator. So 15 divided by sine of 33. 15 divided by sine of 33. Rounding to the nearest tenth, I get 27.5. So this hypotenuse is 27.5. Okay, let's make just some quick little conclusions just to help us with some shortcuts, some little reminders. So on the first few examples, every time x was on top, right? And when x was on top, what operation did we end up using? We multiplied. We multiplied 26 times the cosine of 21 and 19 times and 32 times. So when x is on top, you're going to end up multiplying. What happened on this example? X was on bottom. And what did we end up doing? We ended up dividing. So you may want to make yourself a little note of that, at least a mental note, that once you set up your ratio, if x is on top, to solve it, you're going to multiply. If x is on bottom, ultimately to solve it, you're going to divide. Okay? And that'll be true every time. All right, let's do another one. So for this example, let's see what information I'm given. So across from the 90-degree angle, I am given the hypotenuse. And then 36, it is right next to it. It is helping to make up this 43 degrees. So that's my adjacent side. So what trig ratio has hypotenuse and adjacent? Well, there's hypotenuse, there's adjacent. So c, which stands for cosine. So cosine of 43 equals adjacent, which is 36, over hypotenuse, which is x. Now I'm ready to solve. So let's cross multiply. X is on bottom, so x times cosine of 43 equals 36. And since x is on bottom, we're going to divide, which algebraically makes sense, but just as a little kind of extra clue. So 36 divided by cosine of 43. 49.2. So this hypotenuse, 49.2. Okay? All right, let's do one more. So let's do this one. All right, what information am I given? Let me write my SOHCAHTOA. So across from the right angle is my hypotenuse. And then next to my angle is my adjacent. So hypotenuse and adjacent This one's also going to be cosine. So cosine of 64 equals adjacent, which is x, over hypotenuse, which is 11. Now let's cross multiply. So I get 11 times the cosine of 64 equals x. And x was on top, so that was a clue we were going to multiply, and that mathematically holds up. So 11 times cosine of 64. $4.8. So 4.8 equals x. So this side is 4.8. Okay, now it's your turn to try some. If you get stuck or have questions, email me or click the Zoom link and we can talk through some. Good luck.